Hey, this is Ross Payton with Rolling Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 160, Beachside Bases, also known as How to Build a Base for Your Game. We're going to be talking about creating bases in Base Raiders with specific techniques that you can use to come up with ideas and execute them for your game. And this is applicable to any kind of real dungeon. I mean, we're going to be talking about the superhero genre and Base Raiders. But, I mean, the ideas could be transferred to D&D or any other thing where you have a place where there's things for players to do.
So can an alternative title to this be Build a Base Workshop?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
How dare you?
That just sounds like a terrible job to have.
Taking kid right now. Look, it's Billy's first villainy. Can we give him
Build a
something good?
bear, the base. That's what I want to see. And it's literally bears. You're biomechanically grafting bears together.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Bear
Would that be a supervillain layer, I think?
It could be either. I mean, maybe there was a heroic team of bears and they had high casualty rates, so they had to replace them.
So it's a cyborg bear ninja squad.
Apparently.
Man,
so
like one changed meaning in that whole conversation changed.
Actually, God, yeah.
yeah, what kind of bear are we talking about?
This season of We Bear Bears got weird really quickly.
Yeah. And of course, I have with me, not as always, is Shaun and Aaron.
Hello.
Yep. So we're also going to be having an interview with Bree Sheldon that I recorded online earlier as a separate segment where they will be talking about their new game Turn, which is about werewolves in a small town. And that's coming to Kickstarter on October 31st. So stay tuned for that. And of course, we also have anecdotes and shout outs. But first we have news. I finally started doing RPPR merchandise. Woo! Yay. So only after a decade. So if you're an RPPR backer on the Patreon, you've undoubtedly heard that I'm creating enamel pins. Those are in production right now. I will mail them after I get them. But for the rest of you, I will have a link in the show notes for a t-shirt store that I've uploaded to, designs to tpublic.com. And we have 3 designs right now. The new RPPR logo. Then we also have Shark Fighting and also Cool Rat. And so you can buy those shirts and help support RPPR.
Yep. If you would like your chest to have the last moments of Conrad Mueller displayed for all to see, then feel free. So, although we'd like to do more shark fighting stuff too, that would actually be great.
Yeah, we'll eventually do. We'll have more designs, and as we do, I'll announce them here. But we have 3 right now. So yeah, that's something to check out. And there are sales every once in a while, and if there's another sale, I'll announce it. So yeah, check that out. But anyways, someone suggested this. I forgot. I think a listener suggested this like a couple weeks ago of talking about creating bases and how to do that in Base Raiders, because I do have some wordage, some pages devoted to that in the book, but more specific things can help out. So creating. I mean, because in Base Raiders, the idea is that these bases exist for a specific reason. They're not just like in D&D. You can ignore it's a lot of that sort of hand wave. People aren't going to disbelieve like that. There's a ruined underground tunnel network with a bunch of monsters in it for you to go.
Let's be fair. The word dungeon is fairly deceptive. I mean,
it's not a place where you torture people.
It originally meant tower.
Yeah, I thought it meant like torture room or prison.
Well, it eventually became a part of the tower, but the original term dungeon meant a tower.
Okay, because to me, I've always think underground, dank, dark.
Well, it then became like a gaol or prison kind of situation.
Yeah.
But that's the original etymology of it. Of course, things change over time. So
yeah, things do change over time.
Weird, huh?
Deep Thoughts by RPPR.
Oh, God, that's an actual deep cut right now.
Okay. So
how many people remember that SNL skit right now?
A lot of people.
A lot of people. Jeez. So in Base Raiders, I kind of go over there are 7 major components to a base that you would need to come up with something cohesive. And that would be first off, the builder / owner of the base. Then 2, the history of it, what's the story, what happened here. Of course, 3 is and these are in no particular order. 3 is the function. What was this build? Every base is a purpose-built structure, is sort of my definition of it. It's not a cave, or if it was, it might have started as a cave, but then someone, built stuff in there. So it's a purpose-built structure. And so there was a reason why they built it. What was it? What was that reason? That doesn't mean it always stayed that way, but like, again, that goes in the history. Then of course 4 is location. Very important. 5, of course, is inhabitants. And this is talking about the inhabitants now when the players encounter, because that's the most important part of a base's history is when the players are in it, because that's the whole reason it exists, technically. So then, of course, 6 would be loot, contents, what's in it? What's the stuff the players can steal? Is there a lot of copper wiring? That kind of thing. And then 7, of course, is defenses. What are the things the players are going to have to punch or, disarm or whatever in order to get through? So this is sort of focusing on a base is something that the players go to do a thing. Now they may be just, whatever the story reason is, that's up to you as the GM, obviously. But let's just go around and sort of the base. Let's talk about specific ways listeners can get into building a base. And this is not talking about game mechanics yet. We'll talk about game mechanics in a little bit. But first, let's talk about thematically, you want a base in your game. And the way I always start, the way we're going to focus is you start with an initial seed. That's one idea that you want to use. It's either something you need or maybe an image that you have a really cool idea for, or the base's owner, something that you want in this base or about this base. So Shaun,
the one time I've run Base Raiders, I started off with just the simple premise of there used to be all these highfalutin big battles between the Ideal and whoever the hell came along. Mm-hmm. The Ideal probably wants to keep their public image well. They probably have repair crews in major locations.
Okay. So the function is where you started.
I went with the function of it's essentially a maintenance shed. It was a minor base that somebody else had gotten into, and they found ways to work with it from there.
Okay.
So yeah, the whole idea was somebody gets their hands on what should be a simple construction mech and goes on a rampage.
Okay.
So yeah, that gives the base thing, but you can expand from there. I was mainly going off.
Well, you already did. You start with construction thing, and then you already talked about inhabitants or defenses. Right. So is this person with the construction mech already inside?
The idea was that he'd actually gotten into it ahead of time and had become a villain. Okay. I didn't do much with the basic exploration. They got there and it had already been looted, but there were a few minor things they could pick up and possibly use.
Okay.
This was a tiny base, I'll admit, but this could be expanded to a much larger idea. Again, the whole point was look at the purpose. This was for a small thing that people forget about instead of just, it's sealing a greater demon, or this holds a powerful artifact and keeps it in check.
Yeah.
This is where I upgrade my minions. This is where we go to pick up the construction equipment to fix the massive hole in the building that when we knocked supervillain X through it a few times.
Yeah.
How do you keep the local government infrastructure from just basically rebelling against the idea of having a superhero group?
Yeah. That's a really good idea. Talking about sort of the down and dirty
the incidentals.
Yeah, superheroes and villains have to build their own infrastructure, which is a point I make in the book, because they're outside the law. They're literally beyond the law. So they can't go to a hospital. They can't just hire a construction company to do it because they'd be like, all right, who's this? The Masked Avenger. I'm sorry, who? You're paying in cash. The IRS is not going to like this. So this money has blood on it. I can't accept this money. Maybe most construction companies would be like,
Why are these serial numbers dated to 20 years in the future?
Or it could be something else. I can pay you in, superpower patches. No.
Yeah. So... Yeah. It sounds like you basically you start with that idea and you immediately came up with multiple ideas or filled in several of the other blanks. Who was in there? What had happened to it? So
that was one of the approaches that I had actually used at that point, and I didn't have to fill in all of them because I wasn't that scenario wasn't focusing on the base as hard, but I could have easily expanded it to include the rest.
Where was it located?
St. Louis.
St. Louis. Okay.
Yeah, they had to save the St. Vis Arch.
Okay. Did the players? Was the task finding the place in the first place?
Part of it was finding out who this a new terrorist came up in a suit of power armor. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm calling. It's a long debate.
Construction mech.
Construction mech, power armor, whatever. And he was at first. A couple buildings went down. Mm-hmm. They had to track down some missing people, figure out who did this. Then they stumble across the looted base. Mm-hmm. Find a few extra odds and ends in there, and then they have to stop this pissed off civil servant from demolishing major landmarks.
Well, I mean, yeah.
That's how you climb to villainy, I guess,
Yeah.
Go after landmarks.
So yeah, the base wasn't the central purpose of the game. It was just one scene.
It was one scene, but it colored a lot of the story.
Yeah.
It
gave a lot of the
background.
backstory to the villain.
So it was kind of a reverse. I don't know. It was kind of an odd sideways way to do it, but I could have gone full in with the base.
Yeah.
Thing.
Well, it's also, you make a really good point in that bases don't have to be the center stage.
Right.
Like the game's called Base Raiders, you think, but no, like just have it being one part of the story is fine.
Well, they were fighting off a base raider.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's a good point. So Aaron, what about you?
When you're talking about the general seeds, usually I'm kind of more in the traditional that I like to figure out like what would be the center thing causing everything around it. I know it's a little bit different. But,
What do you mean?
Well, basically kind of build up that one thing that it essentially protects or is causing the issue in the story and then radiate
Can you give me an
everything else.
example?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
So it's not in Base Raiders, but it was actually when I did the second Common Rider episode for Delta Green, that the whole thing of that series was you had the Shan that were capturing that rider and trying to create that interdimensional portal out of Earth.
Okay.
And it's like, all right, we have that there. What is initially protecting it? What is shielding it from there? Are there goons outside, or who are the people that are surrounding?
So what
it?
is? Oh, so this is the facility where they're guarding this thing.
Yeah, so I basically create that one thing and then build it around like what are the fortifications?
Okay, so you
What-
start with like the contents and
Yeah.
then the defenses.
Exactly. Contents, defenses, people, why are they there? What are the clues that are going to bring in the other players to say, like, hey, there's lights going on all across the street. The power grid is being drained in a weird way. You have leaflets saying, hey, come over and that's like get a free meal and you're not going to completely be a sacrifice to the Shan. So things that would draw them in from that central idea and then just kind of building up around it instead of just kind of segmenting one side and then trying to figure out the reasons why they would be there.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's another point is to be player facing in terms of the each of these categories is like the history doesn't, for example, the history of the base doesn't matter except what the players can learn. I know there's a lot of GMs, there's a lot of RPGs out there that kind of like, here's this amazing history of this faction or this artifact or whatever. The players can never learn it. And it will never come up and play. There's no way to even indirectly learn it.
And that's a really bad way to kind
It
of
is
set
a really,
these
it's,
up.
well, for, I mean, as a GM, like, you just don't have that time to like, here's 30 pages of backstory that I written. Oh, awesome. What do we know? Nothing. These people are long dead. It's an alien language you can't read, and it has nothing to do with the plot. Actually, it does have everything to do with the plot. If you knew it, you'd be at a huge advantage, but there's no way for you to learn it. So you're just going to be manipulated and pushed around. Like I've seen that kind of happen in some written games.
I think that scenario I reviewed that was basically at the Mountains of Madness and D&D with the Insane Asylum kind of did that. It was just like,
oh yeah, we
great.
did that for After Hours.
Yeah, After Hours episode. I forget which one, but it was just like, here's an info dump. What is it? Does it mean anything? Nope. Just helps you flavor the text a bit, you know?
Well, yeah, but even in that case, the players might be able to puzzle it out. But yeah,
There was a lot of details they really
so
couldn't.
every single category, you need to make it something like, how do the players interact with this? Do they learn about it? Do they fight it? Do they, loot it? What is?
And exactly, and that's actually why I like putting that central aspect of moving out, is because every once in a while, especially if the players end up getting off track from a particular rail that you might have set up towards this, it's easier to build off another path to say like, oh, this person links in here since you're going for this, or if they decide to latch onto that one NPC you said like he really doesn't mean anything. God damn it, Turtle Man, and then you can immediately get everything back towards that center. It might be a little bit off, but it gives you an opportunity to build maybe something else, or if you've written additional materials, like, hey, there's this one side building that contains the runes or the CERM or something that allows you to read that alien language. Boom, you're right back in.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, the thing is, you don't want to, like, I mean, there's the eternal debate of how much do you try to railroad or force players down a certain path. And you don't, the way, I find it interesting when the players don't go to places. For example, in a game I ran last week for you guys, there was one area, which is an upcoming AP, where you guys are like, no, we're not going in there. I'm like, well, okay. And if you had gone in there, it would have gone a lot, you would have done a lot better at the end of the game.
Oh yeah.
but like
True.
you didn't, and I found that quite interesting. So
Well, that's what yakety sax is for, you know.
yeah. So stay tuned for Call of Cthulhu: The Space Between. Yeah, that was a pretty interesting thing. So you don't want to force the players down because it's interesting when they choose not to go or not to do something.
Yeah.
But like,
There's also the issue of just being too proud of your own work. So
that's absolutely.
I've done it, honestly.
yeah. But everything, the main idea is like once you pick that initial element, that one of those 7 categories you're gonna fill out, then you need everything it's better if everything logically flows from that. So like you want a base that you basically like, okay, the most important thing about this base, the initial seed, is that it got this massive thing in here, this important plot device, and that the players want to get. Okay, so like then you go there, well, why is it there? And then like what is guarding? What's between it and the players? And then from there you can go, well, who built that? Who put it there? Or how did it wind up there? And then you can figure out, was the base even designed for that, or was it built? Did they like take someone's safe house and turn it into a vault, or something like that? So yes, everything should logically flow from one to the others. So yeah.
So I mean, another idea I was like throwing out there was the player point of view could be a great place to start. Like, how are they getting into this mess? What are they going to see when they start off, and then build from there. So one of the ideas I was been toying,
especially for smaller bases.
Yeah. One of the ideas I've been toying with, which I still haven't finished up yet, I was going to call it airbed and base. Sometimes people rent big ass like houses out in the country or on a beach or whatever, and they go out there with some friends or whatever. So what if the PCs are a group of friends? They rent a place. They don't know it was a base. The person's renting it out who somehow picked it up, thought it was just a McMansion or whatever. In reality, it's the front for a base. Somebody leans on a sconce at some point, and the defenses activate. It locks everybody in, so they have to go deeper. They find power ups inside. That's up to them if they want to use them.
Yeah.
All the defenses are activated. It might have been. Then from there you go. Well, okay, so that they're being flushed into a base. They kind of know what's going on, but not really. And also, there's the issue of who the fuck would build this and start with. And that when I was thinking about it, I was like, what if it's a former badass assassin that got picked off by Ragnarok somehow? And again, their house defaulted and it was registered as just a house. Somebody bought it and thought, I can rent this out. And they never knew that it had like a death robot hidden behind the fireplace. So, I mean, yeah.
That's a good idea.
I mean, that's the thing is like, also in Base Raider specifically, everything's been abandoned for at least a year. So like, you have that sort of neglect and like the idea that someone else, their squatters can come in or, defense systems can malfunction. Any number of things can happen. Prisoners get out, that kind of thing.
Another idea that kind of dovetails off that one is maybe you have a larger villain or somebody else who ends up finding multiple smaller bases of like maybe street level heroes or other ones and decides to do a Guild of Calamitous Intent thing where he produces a gig economy villainy issue where he rents out these places to smaller people who don't have the ability to either get what they need or
so which base are you talking about? Are you talking about one of the smaller bases?
Yeah, basically just do instead of one, just do a collective of a lot of smaller ones that they could explore through, saying like, hey, it's like Red-Handed Brawler has all of this. It's like Super Soldier Serum. You can go over here and take out of this. Or
so you're talking about the history is like it was repurposed. It was basically taken over by someone else and used. Yeah, and you can go from there. That's a good idea. For another example, there's a Patreon game I was going to run, but players had scheduling issues, and that was called the Cassandra Vaccine. So to explain that, one of the things I was thinking of is the ideal, back when the superheroes were around, they were like, well, we need to sort of, society is going to face all these existential threats, and we can't protect them from everything. We can't perfectly shield them from everything. So we need to immunize them. We need to inoculate them.
That's never scary.
Against certain existential threats. Because if we introduce a minor version of this threat to where people are conceptually aware about it, and then of course because people are being people, they wildly overreact to something that causes a relatively minor amount of damage, but is all over the media and it's really different. they'll develop good protocols to defend against this thing that is really kind of in terms of absolute numbers very minor. Like say 1,000 people get killed or whatever, or 1,000 people are affected. That's really scary. It makes really great media narrative, but it's not like like car crashes or drunk driving or anything. So like. But then 30 years down later, when the real version of that threat comes along the line, they'll have these protocols and they'll know how to deal with it. And so the idea is that they someone finds a base that was designed to launch this minor scale threat. So in my case, it was going to be alien possession. Like they were going to essentially allow a group of alien parasites to come in, some Shaun-esque aliens to possess like a small town or something like that, and cause all these kind of hijinks. And then the players were going to have to like alert society and let them see and not intervene directly and just monitor and see what happens. And then hopefully eventually first responders or street level heroes who have no idea what's going on respond to it, defeat the alien parasites and stop them, and then everyone freaks out. It's a massive
so they're just kind of doing their monsters are due on Maple Street.
Well, I mean, again, it's to immunize them. So it's being socially engineered. So it's like, so now everybody on the planet is aware that, you can be possessed, and then there's certain symptoms if you're possessed. And then there's, that's a thing that everyone's aware that this is now a thing that can happen to you.
Are you possessed by alien entities? Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah, it's more likely than you think. Yeah, because my brain infested with alien brain bugs, it's more likely than you think.
Have you started craving dark matter? Go see your doctor today.
Exactly. So the whole base would be designed around releasing these parasites and monitoring the small town about it. And the players would be like, and then the person who found the base is like, oh shit, this is sort of a scouting force level invasion. But according to these readings from deep, space, there's going to be a massive invasion in like 30 years. So if we do it now, society will have time to prepare and build these protocols and institutions and, deal with it. If we do nothing, everyone's going to take brain bugs, So.
I kind of like it. It's that, again, spoilers for a movie that's more than a year old now, but kind of a thing with Arrival. So that they're with the aliens that they came here and were trying to say like, hey, we're going to need you in 1,000 years.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. From the aliens' point of view.
Here's your time vision.
Yeah. So exactly. Except we're now the aliens in this scenario, but we're also ourselves. So or like the heroes are the aliens, and people are people. So that's the sort of dilemma, and that's the genesis of the base. So everything flows from that. So like there's defenses to make sure the brain bugs don't infect the heroes who are running the base, and then there's all these other things. So of course, then the scenario is more about like the ethics of infesting causing a small town, a small scale, basically existential threat. For the greater good. And seeing how players respond to that. So. So that's kind of the idea. In fact, because the game was canceled, I didn't fully develop, so we could talk about it now. So let's kind of talk about it. So I told you the function of it. So Shaun, do you want to do one of the other features?
Let's see. We kind of have the history of it actually, also sort of.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, actually, no, I didn't. That was how it was built, but I don't know. I didn't specify what had happened to it in the year after Ragnarok.
So, what kind of asshole does this?
We didn't talk about who built it either. So,
I mean, what kind of person? It could be like some kind of, I don't know, somebody who'd see themselves as from a more medical point of view.
Yeah.
So some kind of healing-based superhero, maybe,
or a ruthless one. Like I could see Batman doing this.
Yeah, or somebody who is a precogging somewhere, thinking that this is the
or
best path.
Reed Richards,
or a time traveler.
Absolutely,
a time traveler. A time traveler could have done
Marvel.
Oh yeah, Cable. Yeah,
could just come back in time to prevent this.
All right. Well, let's. Okay, so we have a lot of candidates. So which one will who built this?
Okay, it depends on how villainous we want to go. If we go full on,
no, this is heroes. This is done by the heroes. This was sanctioned by the Ideal.
Let's drop the ruthless. Say it's somebody who's but they're being a bit practical.
Okay,
there's a slight difference there. I'm kind of, I know it's because I came up with it, but I'm kind of liking the idea of the guy who comes back in time because they are a problem in the future. Only he doesn't realize, because of Ragnarok happens. He doesn't realize that he potentially might have started it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
just
All right. So the time
grandfather
travel.
paradoxing it.
So we're doing a cable essentially. Yeah. All right. So we have a time traveler hero from the future who built this to protect against the future invasion of alien brain bugs, and we'll just call them brain bugs.
Yeah.
All right. So we have that. So what happened to it in the year after Ragnarok, Aaron?
Oh, so
Was it totally sealed and left intact until I'm going to say Iconoclast, the super science hero from Base Raiders, who
No, I'm actually going to say
is the one who finds it.
Iconoclast is the one who finds it.
Yeah, for my scenario, Iconoclast eventually finds it and is the one to start the scenario by, hey, come help me deal with this threat.
Okay, so I'm going to actually say immediately that she starts just disseminating this information around because she's okay.
This is a year later.
Oh, the year later.
So did anything happen between when Ragnarok happened and when Iconoclast found it?
Okay, actually, I'm going to say that she wasn't actually the first person to find it.
Okay.
There were a group of, vagrants, hobos that ended up just
normal people.
Just normal people
Okay.
that ended up squatting in there because they needed some place. Like in Shaun's scenario, didn't realize what they found and managed to stumble upon the neural interface that imprinted this warning on there. So they just decided they needed to stop it in their own way.
Okay. Interesting. So what are they doing? Did they get infested with brain bugs? The brain bugs that are in containment, or did they?
I would say yes. Actually, I will do that. There's one in stasis that the time traveler ended up bringing back because he needed a physical specimen to say, "Here, see, this is real." And
well, remember the idea is that they infest. It's a vaccine, so that you have to actually give the people brain bugs, but it's a weakened brain bug invasion. So
a tiny outbreak.
Yeah, tiny outbreak ends up going out. So yeah, so we have the first outbreak before.
Okay, so the hobos get infected with it.
Yes.
Okay. How did the hobos get in?
So for that,
Because you would assume that there would be locks and voice prints and
there would be for this one, and because we're saying this is set up by the time traveler.
Yeah.
It is his direct descendant, or sorry, direct ancestor. So
okay, so he passes the genetic thing.
Gotta love the irony there.
Okay,
Yep.
All right, all right.
He sneezes on the lock.
That's pretty clever. Yeah. He pees on the lock. Genetics.
I wasn't going with that, but yeah.
Genetic code recognized. Door opening.
Ammonia level correct.
Guys, come in. It's air conditioned. It's nice.
The future is truly bleak if we're detecting people based off of their urine content.
There's all sorts of Mr. Pibb
the tech
available.
is so advanced. It's smart. It just new biological sample detected. Analyzing. Oh, hello. What are we going to call this time travel? By the way.
Rope.
Rope. All right.
Cord? I don't know.
Cord.
Or cord.
I like cord. All right. So cord. Hello, cord. It's like, what? Oh, sure. Okay, guys, come on in. And then they go in and it's like, oh, this is nicer than the, tunnel we've been hiding in. And then someone pushes the wrong button and the brain bugs get out.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, does this dispense a pie? No.
All right.
I heard these Base Raiders make money by just coming in and pushing buttons. I push the buttons.
Where's my money?
By the way, so where is this located? Is this obviously the function is to infest a small town? Is it near the small town or is it far away?
I should think it should be close enough to the small town, but in isolated enough small town, like somewhere in the middle of Wyoming or something.
I'd put it more in line than Michigan, especially where there could be a lot of infrastructure.
I would say to keep it away from that because you want to have a controlled infestation.
Okay, so maybe an old corn processing plant.
Something. I don't know.
So
okay. Well, there has to be a homeless camp nearby because so of course this is the grim dark future. So this is not. It's not the grim dark future. It's sort of supposed to be modern day, but with superheroes. So there's a homeless camp in a small town in Wyoming, and
it's along a train line.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's near trains. Yeah.
Hobo connection established.
Yeah, it's near a train yard, and the hobos were from the train, and they peed on it, and
oh God, Ross, A number one detected.
A number one detected. There we go.
Oh wow.
So they get in.
Emperor of the North Protocol activated. Sorry.
No, it's fine. So the inhabitants, we kind of figured out there's the brain bugs and there's the hobos. We'll say they're locked in. The defenses did kick in because it detected an outbreak. So it's on lockdown. And that's when Iconoclast picked up on it because when it's on lockdown, it emits more emits more heat. So she picked up there's a massive underground heat source in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming. So she checked out back, and then she hacked into it remotely to figure out what was going on. And so it's like, oh shit, I can't do this. I don't know what's in there. We need to go deal with that, and I need to go get some friends to go help with us. Hence the PCs.
Yep.
So let's talk about loot and defenses. What other loot and what other defenses are there?
Well, this is a time traveler's holdaway, and he's probably going to have some stuff just for fighting mind control and alien pests.
Okay. So what kind of form are these drugs? Are these like devices? Are these
I want to say it's
cybernetic implants?
maybe something energy based. Like you would have like certain devices that you would have to use. So
Like a ray gun, essentially,
yeah, you got a ray gun that can like filter.
or an emitter, like a little device that projects an energy field that frees you of brain bug infestation.
Yeah, some of those. I think some of those might be biological weapons that, if released, either
drugs,
drugs, or like something
Chemicals.
in a gaseous form that would force. It's like that would make the host uninhabitable for the bugs.
Okay, so there's a gas. All right. What other defenses?
Because you don't want just anybody getting in there, right?
Yeah.
Oh God!
Other than the chosen
What if there
one.
was a time lock? Like you walk into a certain area and you're stuck.
Okay.
That could be like
Unless you hack it or
you have to hack it, brute force it, break it, somehow figure out how to stop it.
Are there any sentient defenses or like more like turrets or death bots or?
Because you gotta have something wandering around there that's pissed off. That
Actually,
because
just to make sure I understand.
Well, there's brain bug infested hobos.
yeah.
Well, just to make sure I understood, when you said time lock, literally a temporal lock where you're just
There's like a zone that is locked in time.
Okay, then actually you have one of the
stasis trap kind of.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you actually, in that case, you'd have maybe a John Connor or Kyle Reese like it's basically in stasis who's released into there. So future soldier that will come out.
Okay. So is he fighting a one-man war against the brain bug hobos?
But he
Yes.
also thinks you're an intruder.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So then you have to gain his trust.
All right. Or just take him out.
True. So
So it's a three-way fight. And let's see what. Yeah, we haven't talked about the brain bugs because obviously they're a defense in the sense that they're going to be hostile. They're going to be trying to escape too.
I think they might have something a little more than they got to be more threatening than just we possess people.
Sure.
They probably have some kind of psychic blast,
Okay. Yeah, they got to be scary.
and they probably enhance the hobo's strength a little bit. Just make sure I'm immune to psychic crap.
Obviously, there's more brain bugs. They've been spawning.
True.
There's a food replicator, obviously. Too.
Oh, actually, if they do have a replicator or some other non-scarcity 3D printer, maybe actually that's like stating that as making different. It's like either Earth-based versions of themselves, something that's a little bit weaker, but they can be used as a shock troop.
Okay.
What if the psychic blocking drug? Or
You mean like a robot?
Robot or maybe a cyborg of some sort.
Okay.
So
What are they using? What are they getting the meat parts from?
well, if they're using any of the hobos that weren't
Okay, so the
for
hobos
candidates.
are now cyborg hobos.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
alien infested cyber hobo. All right.
Yeah, all right.
New character.
So the brain bugs, how intelligent are they? Do they make the host more intelligent, or are they just have the exact same skills of the hobos?
What if they have kind of a collective psychic network?
So the more of them are, the smarter
they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if you let it go for too freaking long because you're dickering around with things, they will get smarter.
Then you have the overmind.
Well,
so.
I would say they're probably as smart as they are because maybe it's based on the number of hosts. So it's like a server farm.
So basically,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. That you get enough of those together, it'll
Right. Well, they don't have any more hosts to take.
boost processing power if they can get out into the town.
If they can get out of
Yeah.
town, then it's.
So if the players fuck up, see a thing, and no, wait, we're going to be careful and back off.
Well, that's the thing is like if they escape, then they'll leave the base, and then the players can be like, well, we can. Then Iconoclast be like, well, let's just go retake this base and go read on those instructions how to do the protocol because we really need to do it and really need to make sure that people are aware of this problem. So you've just basically jump started the Cassandra vaccine.
While Farmington went, it's like Wyoming suddenly becomes the server.
I mean, that was the goal all along. But
You have to follow through.
You have to follow through, but you haven't read anything. You don't know what the protocols are. You haven't practiced at all, so you're just like reading it blindly and like trying to
like from an old government manual.
It's like it's like that trope of like the pilot dies and like some passenger has to be talked down into landing the plane. So like you're just doing that only with brain bugs that could take over the world. So,
Yeah.
And if the players screw it up, they essentially maintain that future.
yeah. So can you change the future or not? So yeah, that was a really good, really fun little way of doing that. So that's kind of the technique. I think there's a lot of different ways to approach this problem in general, but I think focusing on one specific thing and going on the next one is sort of the best way for this.
There's a couple of other like sources of inspiration you can use. I don't think we've mentioned. Which,
Yeah.
One of them is, for example, a thing I've been doing for some games is just as it's a bit of a giggle. Old album covers, especially prog rock album covers, are fun for shit like that. That can give you some amazing imagery, like a flamingo flying in front of some weird machine in front of an escalator. How do I make sense out of this?
Yeah.
If you're really feeling a challenge. But the other idea, look at old, actually already established dungeons for D&D and stuff like that, and see how you can make that into more of a modern thing. So I threw out the joking idea of if you wanted to make an entire campaign out of one base where they just keep going back in. There's different factions. You could look at something like Temple of Elemental Evil. Yeah, just come up with that. Start with that inspiration. And so, how would this even happen? What if one of the build-a-base factories, because something has to make these, went rampant and nobody noticed?
Well, actually, I already had.
Oh, you have one? All right.
Well, it's an idea I had. I never followed through on it. But like one of the original stretch goals for the Base Raiders campaign was actually Avalon's Fortress. Avalon was the Superman equivalent in Base Raiders.
Saved you?
He had his own Fortress
throw
of
something at you.
Solitude. And so like that would have been essentially a mega dungeon along the Temple of Elemental Evil line where like he has like this part of the he had his alien zoo and all the critters got out and the sentient ones rounded everybody up to run it like Animal Farm. In this wing they have the Avalon bots, which are all robotic duplicates of Avalon, not nearly as powerful as he is, but they control this wing. And then of course we have Base Raiders coming in another wing just trying to rip the copper wiring out of the walls of this Arctic base. And so, it's a massive mega dungeon and with different factions that all hate each other as you're doing that. So that was my initial idea.
And so, it's just kind of that same idea. I mean,
and that could have been the place where they built the build-a-bases too. So, because it was the only secure place.
Yeah, or taking on the ideas for either D&D or other fantasy base, because I still forget the name of the title. What was the Dwarven city that essentially was the giant robot? I cannot remember the name of it.
We reviewed on After Hours.
Yeah, we reviewed off After Hours. So, but we know the So
it was done by Dave Zebcook. I think it was like Earthshaker or something.
So, but the base, if you didn't listen to that After Hours episode, is that there's a dwarven city that essentially is just a giant clockwork.
I think it was
robot.
Gnome actually,
or Gnome. Yeah, right. But that could be another interesting one where a base is literally a giant mech that ends up emerging from the sea.
A listener actually did make that.
Oh.
I played it at Gen Con.
Oh, never mind then.
Was that Micah?
Yes, it was.
Then I'm plagiarizing off of Micah. So.
Oh no! It's a common idea that people have. Like Ross and I both had the massive mega base thing. So
in this case, you could put a timetable on it because I don't know what happened in Micah's. Mine is kind of it emerges from the sea and starts walking across the continent unlike the whale from the Tick. And then you have to actually get in there and stop it or find what you can from it before it goes back into the Atlantic.
We had to clear out parasites and such and get it running again so that we could it's been going from room to room, sector to sector, and so we could pilot it against a kaiju.
Yeah.
So there was a bigger goal in the series. Again, no, but that's still some of the base structure, and it had a whole backstory and who built it and why. So
I think you add a lot of in that. Again, the sort of the blanks fill themselves in with something like that. Like it's a giant robot. It was built to fight kaiju or fight other alien invaders or whatever else, and it was built by this guy. And here the defenses are obviously very obvious. Point defense systems. Smaller robots inside, inhabitants or whoever broke into it originally or other robots. It kind of writes itself. And in that one, you also have an interesting thing of the timetable because it's moving and it's going to interact with the world, so to speak. So, is the Navy going to fucking launch a nuke at it, just to get rid of it? Because, oh God, it's a giant robot. It's going to destroy our cities. We need to stop it now.
Anytown, USA is small enough and the robot's next to it, but whatever.
Yeah, that town's got brain bugs anyway. It's fine.
It'll be okay 20 years from now.
Essentially. So yeah, it's imagery would work not as a related thing. Like if you have one idea for a particular room, like an idea like, oh, it would be a really cool battle scene if they were in a room without gravity, and like it was a 3D, it was a 0G danger room, but it was real, and it could 3D print obstacles as you were going through, or use hard light or whatever, and then just build it from that thing. So yeah, if you had some just cool idea for a scene, just build it up from that. So like, oh, it's actually when you step in, it looks like you're on a rooftop. And it's the full moon is out, and you have a katana in hand, and there's another guy with a trench coat, and he's coming at you. And this is how the base starts, and you're like, what? And it's so cool. So like,
it starts with a hub. What's the hub? The hub is a bar in the middle of the entire base with, I don't know, some kind of illusion shadow thing. You have to figure out how to interact with the system that way. Every inhabitant of the bar is a part of the system. They ask you to do things in the side rooms.
Oh wow, yeah. Yeah, see, that's a great idea. Yeah, start with the bar. Yeah.
Or one I can think of is that when talking about the hard light aspect of it, say that there's a mystery where buildings are literally disappearing out of a town, and say it's a larger city, kind of like Springfield here, and you're trying to figure out, and you end up going into the base, figuring out it literally is generating hard light constructs for this entire town, and it is failing. So, are you just?
Oh yeah, the entire town.
The entire place is people are actually living there, but you're dealing with their homes actually disappearing and falling to their deaths. Or
how long have you been living here? Oh, the town's been around since 1983.
Yeah. And then what you have to figure it out. Do you somehow figure out a way to maintain it? Do you try to profit off of it, or do you try to just destroy it and steal the technology and leave these people to die?
And from there, you can fill in the blanks of like work your way back to like who built it, why did they build it, what other defenses are there, why is it still around, in this state. Just asking logical questions, like start with something and then work your way either forwards or backwards.
How do I explain this shit?
Yeah, how do I explain that shit? And make sure everything is something that players can sort of at least partially figure out. They don't need to figure out all the details. They don't need to, like for the brain bug base, you don't need to figure out how to. Well, we already told them how they got the brain bug. Time travel brought it in, but how the time travel there? Why isn't he just time traveling all his problems away? Why did he know about Ragnarok? Well, blah blah blah. You don't need to explain everything. So, but enough that the base has a sort of logical consistency to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, when we come back, we'll have some. We're doing Bree Sheldon's interview. We'll have shout outs and anecdotes.
See you.
Hey, this is Ross, and we're doing a new segment for this episode of RPPR. We are interviewing a game designer and talking about their Kickstarter project, which is coming out October 31st, I believe. The project launches on October 31st. It's called Turn. It's a game about werewolves in small towns, and I have with me Bree Sheldon, the writer, the creator of the game.
Hi, I'm Bree Sheldon. I'm game designer, journalist, and altogether messy person. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him. And I'm excited to talk today.
Yeah. So give us the elevator pitch for Turn.
So Turn is a slice of life, quiet drama, supernatural role-playing game set in small rural towns where you play shapeshifters that can shapeshift into a variety of animals. And it basically is about exploring identity and finding balance while also finding community.
Okay. Does this use its own original system, or is it based on a existing framework?
It's pretty much original system. It was originally based on destructive design of Monster Hearts, but it's come very far from there. So the only similarity is like the die type and that you have stats and abilities.
Okay.
So
tell us a little in terms of like, so you talk about destructive design, or could you tell us a little bit about that in terms of like how you started at Monster Hearts and then you got to this sounds like the kind of game you actually, or at least in terms of setting, you could run in Monster Hearts, but if it was set in a high school in a small town, but this is more
slice of life meets lycanthropy.
Basically, yeah. So system wise, I played Monster Hearts in like 2012. And I was unsatisfied with some of the stuff I experienced while playing it. And what I wanted was a slower paced game about adults and having them experience, the struggle differently and focusing specifically on shapeshifters. So I basically spent a really long period of time breaking down how Monster Hearts works, like how the different pieces of the game fits together. And then I picked and chose things that I liked and then modified them, and it became just this entirely different beast. And it makes for a much calmer game overall.
Yeah, Monster Hearts is about, the trouble, God, how would you characterize high school? Chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that's not for everybody.
Yeah, Turn is a lot. There's still a lot of drama, but it's a different kind of drama. It's very much everyday things that people encounter, like getting a phone call from a bill collector, and how do you handle that when you'd really like to be curled up in a cave somewhere. It sounds pretty weird whenever I put it that way.
Well, I mean, tabletop RPGs can be pretty weird in general. And I think that's sort of the appeal, is to have sort of a niche thing that isn't, something that's overrepresented. So slice of life games, I feel, are a very underserved portion of the market in general. I think there's more appeal for them than people would know. I know a lot of my friends tend to have games where a lot of it is just kind of hanging out and interacting with, the interesting NPCs that have been built into the game, and rather than like, we must do the plot immediately, and throw ourselves into it. So how long did it take you to sort of get from, I didn't like, Monster Hearts was interesting, but I wanted to change it to, it's kind of, you said the text was sort of in its final form.
So I kept everything in my head and did write it down for between 2013 and 2016, the end of the year. And then I just wrote like a whole bunch of stuff in like 2 weeks and had a workable game to start with. And over the past 2 years, I've done a bunch of playtesting, and I'm basically at the point where there's nothing more that needs to be done to make it a game that can kickstart and be bought and played. It just is with an editor, basically. Like, I have it with Tracy Barnett as my editor, and they're wonderful. And I have John Sheldon as my developmental editor as well. They've both been really instrumental in making it to the product it is. And so it was a long period. Like, I worked on it for a really long time in my head, in like spare notes on notepads in various places, but never officially wrote anything down for like many years.
So did you have it play tested by other groups as well?
A couple of other groups have play tested it. Jason Morningstar actually took it to his group and play tested it, and found out why I specifically call out it has a very different tone. Jason is wonderful, and I was really excited that he played, but his group goes for a much more high drama vibe than the game is really designed for. So it was fun to see how that played out in playtest. And I played it with groups of variety of sizes, like down to 2 players and up to like 4. And I actually took it to Big Bad Con this weekend, and that was really exciting because it basically played out perfectly. And it's always been in pretty good shape. Like, that sounds kind of weird to say, but I knew pretty clearly how I wanted things to work whenever I started writing it down. And it's just really paid off, like, really well, that the game just functions the way I wanted it to. And so pretty much everyone who's played it has had that experience. I know that it actually was taken to a con in Italy not too long ago, and a group there is starting their own game right now. Yeah, with the beta version that's out online.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about the game mechanics themselves. Like, how are they different? Like, how do you make a game about slice of life that mechanically doesn't sort of emphasize or encourage the slower pace that you're trying to go for with this?
So the first thing I did is you always succeed at whatever you're trying to do. The rolls you make are not about whether you succeed or fail.
Mhm.
They're about what consequences there are from your action.
Okay.
And this changes how people approach situations like so drastically. Like it makes things that would be dramatic into just like, oh, I'm going about my normal business kind of deal. And so the die rolling is it's 3d6, one of which is optional. You use it whenever you can like activate powers from the opposing form that you're in. So if you're in human form and you can be like, well, I have this power on my beast sheet because you have 2 character sheets. You can say, I'm going to use the turn die, and that's what that third die is. And this basically makes it more likely for you to get positive results, but you take a stress whenever you do that. And stress is like, as it adds up, it makes you likely to force turn into your opposite form.
Okay. So do players have an option of like, oh, I didn't want to pay that consequence. Can I not do that then? Or is it like
you can add it before or after the roll.
Okay.
To use the turn die. Like it's one of those like you add it whenever you want throughout the period of the roll, and you also use turn, like whenever you play turn, you use script change. And with script change, you can rewind a roll back if you're really unhappy with the consequences for some reason.
Okay.
That's a kind of an essential tool of the game. Yeah.
So what is sort of the central, like, I guess the dilemma for the characters is personal, is I'm trying to find some sort of balance between their human and beast natures, or is there a larger plot? Or
there's typically no larger plot beyond what you put into it. It's not a constructed adventure or anything like that in the beginning. A lot of the time we've had just town issues that are coming up, like a local election that has the potential to make like a wildlife refuge be no longer accessible, or one of the characters' family members is in bad health and they're struggling to find somewhere for them to live and keep their land from being bought out from under them. And they can seem really tedious, but like we almost had somebody turn into a bison in the mayor's office one day. And it it goes from like 0 to 100 with like, you know, the kind of panic that would happen if you had that kind of experience of being this super powered beast stuck in a human body, or sometimes this, you know, human who can go take a nap on the couch stuck in the body of a beast who is like at this point like fighting for their lives. The beast moments are just as like exciting and interesting as it is whenever you're in human form.
Interesting. So is there sort of a pre-built kind of like mythology or setting that explains them, or is it more of like a toolkit game where you can sort of like, oh, this is the cause of why some people are lycanthropes and why some aren't, or like do you know what I mean? So
so turn explicitly comes with no predisposition in regards to where their origins are. You define that kind of in play. I wanted really hard to avoid appropriation of any other mythologies or anything like that, because as white people, that is like the majority of the groups I play with. We tend to steal things, and I didn't really want to do that for my game. So instead, there's the establishment of, you know, this is you find this out. This is the answer you find. And there's some questions that you ask to explain, like if there's culture of shifters, how this shifting feels. It's called Discovering Turn. It's a part of the setup and initial play.
Okay. So it's like a collaborative, create the setting kind of game. So everyone has their answer. Okay. Yeah. Games like that can be very rewarding because players, you know, like, here's the stuff I like, and now it's in the game, no matter what. Interesting. Are there any other mechanics that you've added that you feel really enhance the game's sort of themes? Or
Yeah, so there's stress, which we talked about a little bit, but there's also exposure, and exposure is kind of the core function of the game in a lot of ways. When you do when you use your beast powers in human form or in beast form, or whenever you use your human abilities in beast form and everything. And sometimes whenever you use the struggles, which are kind of like the base moves, but they're very different in how they end up functioning, you end up risking exposure, which can be positive or negative, and applied to either your NPCs, other animals, or the town itself. And basically, it's little positive and negative marks that you add up, and you can reach the end of the track. And when that happens, you have to like deal with the consequences of that.
okay. Oh, so that like that's sort of the ending of your character story, or they have to be run out of town or something like that.
You can also be accepted.
Okay.
It's possible to find acceptance by NPCs individually or by the town as a whole. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone will be. It's kind of everyone's on their own track to find out how they're going to be. It's called revealed, reviled, or known. And those are the different ways that you can be accepted, rejected, or kind of tolerated by the town.
Is that kind of like the sort of pre-built sort of campaign ending, is like finding out how your character is going to wind up in the town? Like,
I think that is essentially how it is. Not a lot of people have played because it is a long play game. Like this isn't like typically traditional, like a 2-session kind of game. It's one that you play over time. Our longest campaign actually has been going for over a year, and we play very far paced out, though I will be honest. But you can have a lot of different ways to come to a conclusion, I think, narratively, but mechanically, yeah, if you take your exposure to the end, it doesn't always happen at the same time for all the characters. So it can be a real like interesting way to see what happens and the fallout of someone being accepted or not accepted.
Okay. Cool. That, I mean, yeah, I like that idea of so it's one possible end game, but the players can make up their own sort of end games. Or like, do you have for your long form playtest campaign, have you kind of like got an idea of when it's going to end, or is it just going to end when it's going to end?
So my character, my namesake Bo, he is actually coming to the end of his exposure track. And there are ways that you can reduce it, but they're very complicated, basically, like not mechanically complicated, but narratively to justify how you can erase this kind of effect, right? Like to say, well, I'm going to make them not think about that anymore. It's kind of challenging. Because some of the character types, the roles, the human roles, can alter exposure a little bit. But he's coming up near the end of it, and this may be like where we have to have the conversation of, are we going to keep playing depending on what happens and everything like that. But we've been playing these characters for over a year, so like we're all really in touch with them and care about them a lot. So you can bring in a new player to replace the character that is fully exposed. If you want to do so you can have a continued campaign. But how that might play out depends on what the final die roll is that determines, are they revealed, are they reviled, or are they known?
It's interesting. I mean, the thing is with a lot of RPGs is they're very sort of mission or quest focus, and like you end a campaign after they complete the grand mission. But this, I mean, it sounds like, again, it's just, you just go on. It's just life. It's just seeing what happens to these people in this town. So I find that really interesting. So, because yeah, I'm so used to doing it the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of like all the time playing games that have quests that have an end. Sometimes I want the option to just keep on going and seeing this place explored and stuff like that. And while I think it is possible if everyone, did things in the right way, they could get some sort of perfect to them ending for a turn.
Mhm.
I think it's also possible that some people might just have a town that they keep using, because the town building is a huge part of turn. You determine themes and bloodlines and all of this stuff to make towns that are really rich and like strong. And some people just want to keep playing in those, even if their characters are different.
Okay. I'd retire one character, bring in a new one, see what happens in season 2, essentially. That sounds really cool. So this is coming to Kickstarter October 31st for a month, I assume.
Yeah.
Do you have any special rewards? I assume you're, of course, giving out the PDF or, offering the PDF and the book as rewards. Are there any special rewards you're offering?
Yeah, so it'll be PDF and print are going to be reward levels. Right now, I don't have a ton of additional stuff. My main stretch goal is just going to full color. The base goal of the Kickstarter is going to be covering getting art for the whole book and some poetry by a poet who grew up around the same small town that I did. And it's a lot of it is just I want to get the book into people's hands in a nice, readable way. I'm not big on a lot of fancy stretch goals and rewards. I may be getting a stretch goal for a unique town setting that will have some special animals and people.
Oh, cool. And you're the only writer on it, or are you inviting other designers to work on it?
Right now, it's just me. I've been basically trying to get the core game as to its height as possible. And that there is a big plan of mine that after the game is out, I'm going to be trying to get new beasts and towns and stuff made and put up for people to download.
Cool.
But that's after this gets through Kickstarter and everyone can get a copy in their hands to play the base game and find what they like.
Do you have any artists in mind for your work for the book yet?
Yes, actually, I currently have draft art for 2 pieces that we'll be using for the Kickstarter promotion, and it's by Reese Harris. They are someone that I know through games and through friends, and they're a fine artist and also do art for the fairy community, and they're extremely skilled. So I'm super excited. And the poetry is going to be done by AJ Odasso, who is relatively popular in the indie poetry scene.
Cool. Well, it sounds like a really fun game. And I hope it does well.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this with some more RPPR.
And we're back. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to put this episode together yet. So whatever the segment was, it was great. I'm sure.
Editing.
Yeah, editing is magical. But we do have shout outs and anecdotes. So first shout out I'd like to give is a book I finished recently. And it's about bases in a sense. It's called A Burglar's Guide to the City. It's a book about how heists and theft, especially burglary particularly, interacts with architecture. It's an interesting book. It goes over a wide variety of topics. It starts out with this interesting. There was a guy in the 19th century, George Leonidas Leslie, who was an architect in New York City, who then realized, you know how I could get more money? Stealing from my clients.
If you build in a trapdoor,
he's not wrong, but
it's like, hey, I'm trying to build a bank, fellow architect, and I'm having problems with the vault. Can I see the schematics for your vault that you designed for a bank? Yeah, sure, fellow architect. Here they are. Take a look. He hooked up with this gang of thieves. The gang of thieves had a fence who owned warehouses in Queens, I think, or somewhere, or Long Island or somewhere. And like they built actual duplicates of the places they were going to steal from to rehearse. So this is where that comes from. That whole trope comes from is he would create these very detailed models, that like 1-to-1 scale models, so they could rehearse their heists.
That's amazing.
He broke into buildings several times to case them, just to scout them out before coming in to steal. And yeah, he was the crown prince of he would other gangs would commission him, pay him just to plan their heists. But he slept with a man's wife, and that guy shot him apparently. So he died. Anyways, there's a lot of other interesting stories, things about safe room building, lock picking, all kinds of interesting stuff. So definitely a must read if you're doing anything about, burglary and shit like that, or, breaking into places or defending against people from breaking into places and shit like that. So they have a whole section on traps, just like talking about how traps work. And, by the way, they're super illegal. You can't build traps that kill people, like, legally.
I kind of figured that was already inherently known. So
you would think, but no.
Well, just in case, because that always brings up to the mind of, the ultimate car deterrent, the flamethrower.
Well, that was South Africa, and that was made illegal in South Africa, too.
Yeah.
As far as I know. So, Shaun, you...
I have a couple things that I watched. So.
Yeah.
Which one should I start with? The
one you just...
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so weeb stuff. So I watched a couple different anime recently that are worth noting. There's a whole bunch of, there's usually a whole bunch of crap that comes out and things that are just way too off. But one of them that had an interesting idea, it came out a couple years ago, was called Kokoku. Kind of translates out to now and then.
Mm-hmm.
The whole premise is this. And it's a tiny minor spoiler for the first episode. There's so much shit that goes on afterwards. So spoiling a first episode shouldn't be too bad because it's the premise. Damn it. State the obvious. Everybody forgets it. No. So this family's, the main character is this girl who her brother and her, I guess, nephew get abducted. Mm-hmm. They don't know by whom. They assume it's some kind of local gang thing. And her grandpa says, well, I'll tell you what, don't call the cops. Let me let you in on the family secret. And he takes out this stone with a hole in it and a little bit of writing. Okay, you're going to have to cut yourself. We're going to have to bleed into this hole. I know. They do it. Time stops. Ooh. They're living in a single moment. And if they do, and he's basically advising her not to mess with anybody who's frozen in time because bad things will happen to you. And they find out quickly that they are not alone in the frozen moment. So their attempt to rescue the family don't go as planned, and they get deeper and deeper into the whole mythology of this.
Ooh.
It's actually it's more of a seinen thing, so it sets up. You could think there's all kinds of wacky supernatural antics, but not as much as you think. It's pretty straightforward, low key, and practical.
Okay,
so worth a shot. Great opening theme, by the way, but it's a bit of a slow burn. But once you get deeper into the mythology, everything just starts falling together, and they give the whole history of how this happened, but they don't just dump it on you. They give reasons for the reveals.
Well, we got a few, more. So I'll do one, then you can do one there. So no, that sounds really cool. I would also talk video game I have not yet beaten yet, but I do really like. It's called Return of the Obra Dinn. It is a puzzle game made by the guy who did Papers, Please. And it's a very different game because it's 3D, but the graphics have been specifically modeled to look like 1980s Macintoshes. Although you can change the rendering so it looks like a Commodore or an early IBM. So, but
I'm already sold.
Yeah,
give me that 8-bit.
But it takes place in 1807. The Obra Dinn is a ship that was lost. Supposed to come back from a trading mission. 1803 hasn't been seen since. So 4 years later. You go on board, and you're supposed to figure out, and you're an insurance investigator, you're supposed to figure out what happened to all 60 people on board the ship. Normally, that would be impossible because there's just corpses there, skeletal corpses. But you have this cursed pocket watch that you can use to look at you can see a person's last moment of life. So you can go, and you can also summon up the ghostly remains of other people who've been, thrown off the ship or whatever. So you can find out what happened to them. So you basically watch you hear the last 10 seconds of their life, then you see the last moment of their life, and you can walk around and see what else is going on in that. And from that, you're supposed to piece together who is who, how they died, and who killed them if they were killed. And you do this for all 60 people. So it's basically one massive interconnected logical puzzle of deduction.
Endurance mode Clue.
I know it's
a bit
no. It is the same kind of logic as Clue in some ways, but like in others, it's like, oh, that guy is wearing an apron, a leather apron, and he is cutting a cow's throat, and I'm guessing he's the butcher of the ship, the guy who has the butcher's job. So I'm just going to assign him that name, and we'll see if that works.
It sounds really awesome, actually. So
no, it's really engaging and engrossing. So I really like it. It's $20 right now. I'm sure it'll go on sale, but if you like puzzles and stuff, and
sounds like a lot of good content for at least the 20 if you decide to purchase it full price.
Yeah, it's also there's no time limit. You can spend as much time as you want to going back and forth. So you can beat it whenever and like after a certain point you can just quit early and just give up, or you can just keep going until you figure everything out. So yeah,
so different endings.
Aaron, you had one?
I recently ended up finding a pretty interesting channel over on YouTube called Men of the West. It's been going on, I think, for about 3 years, and YouTube just decided to, hey, we're going to dump this into your queue. So they primarily do retrospectives on Tolkien, so all of the characters' biographies and whatnot. But the interesting thing that the main guy of this does is what if scenarios, and I'm always interested to hear what those. But I like that they actually go farther in depth than just saying, here's what this character did, and this would be the reactions of it. I've seen a lot of those, unfortunately, that don't put a lot of effort into it. It seems like he's writing it out in Tolkien style and then narrates that as well, along with the analyses of the different characters. One of the two coolest ones I love is that one of if Saruman claimed the ring for himself, which ended up being pretty dire for that, saying like, yeah, he pretty much imprisoned and killed everybody, and then I don't want to fully spoil the end for it, but it did kind of go into a full-on end time scenario, which was interesting. The one I will kind of spoil only just because it's I would encourage you to listen throughout from this is the one if they tried to send the ring to the West, that if they actually took it into the Grey Havens and said, hey, Valar, you deal with this shit while we do this. And the fuller of it ended up being a negative scenario where, again, it was a mounting loss because Sauron's link to the world was still there, but it ended up with Gandalf essentially on the shore saying, well, this is it, but the Valar coming in saying, you're going to die, sorry, but we're going to come in and clean up your crap. This is we understand, it's like we can't have this in the Undying Lands, but we'll come in to take care of this for you. So everything's going to be okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. But again, the effort that he puts in for not only the narration, but that's like the analysis of this is really interesting. So I would highly recommend those, especially if you like what if scenarios, but also just the retrospectives as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's see here. I have one more, which is another one that starts with Return. Return to the 36th Chamber, which is the movie, not the album from Old Dirty Bastard. Just to specify, I've been on a kick of watching old Shaw Brother movies because I haven't seen. There's a whole trilogy of 36 Chamber movies. There's the 36th Chamber, Return to the 36th Chamber, and Disciples of the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. And I'd seen the first one, but I hadn't seen the last two. And they're both on Amazon Prime. So Return is an interesting movie because structurally, and it's quite entertaining. So it starts like in the first movie, it stars Gordon Liu as the monk Santee, and he's saving the people from the bad guys after he learns Shaolin Kung Fu. In this one, Gordon Liu plays an actor who's friends to workers of this textiles factory, and the textiles factory owner is an asshole who's like, well, I'm going to cut your pay 20%. Why? To pay these Manchu thugs with staves to beat the hell out of you. That's what I'm gonna do. And they're like, no, we don't want that. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to beat the hell out of you then. So they enlist but the Manchus are afraid of the Shaolin temple because Shaolin Kung Fu is better than everything. So they convince Gordon Liu, the actor, to pretend to be a priest of Shaolin. And then they actually help him perform a bunch of tricks to jump from a tree with a wire to look like he can jump really high and that kind of thing. And to convince the Manchus, well, if you don't pay them their full amount, I'll kick the crap out of you. But the boss's boss sees through that and everyone gets the crap kicked out of him. And so the actor feels really bad about this. And his friend said, well, why don't you go to the Shaolin Temple and actually learn Kung Fu? And he's like, well, I guess I will. And so he sneaks in there multiple times, and eventually just pretending to be a student. It's literally fake it till you make it. And the monk, the Santee monk, who's played by a different actor this time, is like, yeah, I saw through that. And you ate a lot of food while you were here pretending to be a monk or a student. So I want you to repair the roof of this temple by building scaffolding around it, bamboo scaffolding. And he's like, okay. And so he spends a year doing this in this elaborate montage where he's watching them practice in the courtyard and building scaffolding. So he's learning Kung Fu on his own, essentially, by mimicking what they're doing and doing this badass bamboo scaffolding techniques. And then at the end but he doesn't realize it. And he doesn't, at the end of it, he's like, well, the man monk said, all right, get out. What, you're not going to teach me Kung Fu? No. And I guess I'm explaining the entire plot of the movie, but it's really entertaining. You should watch it because, again, it's just this fascinating, the guy who fakes it until he literally does make it, and he comes up with scaffolding Kung Fu. He works scaffolding techniques into his Kung Fu, like tying up his enemies with bamboo and shit like that. It's quite entertaining.
Sounds amazing.
It's on Amazon Prime. It's free. It returned to 36 chambers. So.
Kung Fu does mean hard work, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah, he does a lot of hard work in the movie, so he is quite oiled up and exercising quite a bit.
Sure there's a scene of Santino they're going, yep, you're learning, get the hell out.
Yeah, there's a couple of smirks, but he doesn't tell the guy. Yeah, he doesn't tell him you already know Kung Fu. He's just like, no.
But I like the idea of
Shaolin loves head games. They love fucking with the minds of
It's a very Taoist thing. Divine jackassery is a thing. I mean, it really is.
It's quite entertaining. Disciples is also interesting to watch, but it's kind of a hot mess in some ways. So, anyways, you had one more.
Yes, more weeb stuff. Okay, it was kind of a big ticket item for people that were keeping their ear to it. Hataraku Saibo, Cells at Work, which, yeah, I know, it's kind of bland. It's one of those semi-edutainment shows, based off of manga where some author did a shit ton of research on a thing and decided to make an entire story out of it. But with mild anime exaggerations of the character, of actual aspects of it. In this case, it's the functioning of the human body, how the cells work.
Oh, yeah. That.
So, the red blood cells are all a little bit derpy, and they run around, and they're just delivery people. Some the main character one gets lost all the time. The white blood cells are kind of made up of these knife-wielding psychopaths who just kill everything they don't like. T cells are more like a military structure. The weirdest part was I forget the actual voice actress name, but she basically was the archetypal big sister for everything from the 80s onward in all anime. Played the macrophage cells, who are all dressed like maids, wielding nasty looking weapons, who just show up, act really nice, and fuck up everything in their path. So, I mean, it's got a bit of exaggeration, but it goes over basic bodily functions, how your immune system works, how your blood system works. The platelets are basically little kids who do arts and crafts to fix your body, and they do the various arcs are going to be, different types of bacteria happening or whatnot. What a scrape looks like from their perspective. It's a massive hole that sucks everything out. It's kind of a fun watch. It's not amazing, but it is kind of cool. I did kind of think it would be an interesting alt setting for Paranoia, but, then again, there's an alternate comic that's been approved by the original author called Hataraku Saibo Black. That's not a well-functioning human body. It's somebody who just, I wouldn't say lives the good life, but basically drinks too much, smokes too much, does all this shit. The body's constantly a mess. They're explaining what's happening from that perspective. And then, at one point he catches an STD. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, it does sound fun. I'm not gonna.
I thought
The paranoia idea is really good. I like it.
It's just like restructure. It could be an interesting entry point for a different game, but
You could actually do something like that in Eclipse Phase, where the characters are just like nano machines inside someone's body. Actually,
that could be pretty cool.
Yeah. So, yeah. Eclipse Phase, it's coming. So I guess that's it for shout outs. But we have an anecdote. I've been running the Scum and Villainy campaign for the group called they're the Oddballs. They're doing the weird jobs. And so you guys have made an enemy for reason. Yeah,
we did.
So the way this started was, if you hand me a tank, I will use it. If you hand me artillery, something's going to blow up. If you hand me a character who's ends up being the face of the group, I will lie. I will tell some doozies, because why not? So at some point, to convince, some pirates, I forget exactly the first session, to convince some pirates to be out of their base or something, or to engage in some kind of a thing to knock down a Fast and the Furious operation we're setting up. I picked up a name and lied about who I was, and I claimed to be this guy Laser Chainsaw, who apparently killed off an orphanage or something. I forget. He did something really fucked up.
An orphanarium, yeah.
And then I just blamed all the damage and misunderstandings on him before we left to get the heat off of us.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not happy, and he has a bounty in that system. Of course, he's a very dangerous person. You'd have to be to continue using the name Laser Chainsaw.
Also, he might be a major. We don't know.
Yeah.
I expected more for you on that one, Ross. Damn
Major
it.
Laser Chainsaw. Yes.
Okay.
I know.
Sounds more of a laser commander. Anyhow, so a couple sessions go by, and Ross is thinking about coming up with a good, season finisher villain, and it's like, oh, do you need some more fuel for the Laser Chainsaw? So I just start blatantly dropping shit. I'm like shit talking the guy online to make sure that his bounty pops up in a system. At some point, or going in disguised as EPA members, I present myself as Lazar Chainsaw. I'm laying on thick like whole milk. And
so for the campaign, we're not gonna. I don't know how long it's gonna last. We're just gonna keep going in for a while, but we're gonna do sort of seasons for it. So like we did with Dresden. So we're gonna have a season 1. And the season 1 finale is going to be a confrontation with Laser Chainsaw. So
I'm going to see how much I can piss him off in the meantime.
Apparently.
It'll be funny.
So
It's going to get so ugly.
Yeah. You're fine with that though, Aaron. I mean, you helped your fellow robots out, your Urbots out. What? They just wanted to release nano weapons in a factory.
I'm not going to say how that goes because we have not released that campaign.
Yeah.
So
Call it a preview.
That's
Yeah, don't you like helping your robots? I thought you'd be more on board with that. Like,
we can promise you that Tom-Toms.
Yeah.
Jason flies the hell out of things. Renee is awesome.
I think I've been pretty even keeled with this particular character.
I know.
And we
you have.
And we
Have I actually given over people to obvious assassins?
No.
Thank you.
It's just a
Thank
faction
you.
full of robots. I thought you'd be more on board with helping them.
Aaron's character's
It's
been
kind
very...
of what they're doing, and the fact that we had to kind of jump through some hoops to make sure that things didn't happen in a way. And also, it's part of that. What plan was also dragging the good name of Laser Chainsaw through the galactic muck.
I'm not done yet. Anyhow, but listen, Aaron's character is very helpful. We magnet notes to him. Anyhow,
His character is nicknamed Fridge.
Yeah, that's his nickname, Fridge. So,
but no, I mean we're gonna. It's gonna get worse.
So that's after Ashen Stars will be putting that up. That are the Unknown Armies treasure hunt campaign, which I'm also doing. That's a mini campaign. I don't know how long that. Yeah, it's kind of a scheduling issue of which campaign I finish first. So we'll see. But anyways, that's it for RPPR episode 160. Please rate and review us on iTunes if you haven't already, or whatever podcasting app you use. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/RPPR. Thank you so much for all your support. I'm at Ross Payton on Twitter.
at Aaron Karsten on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't Twitter.
So it's okay if we add one more thing.
Shaun,
to that?
don't tweet.
Nope.
Is one more thing. Just since we had said that, Shaun and I are doing weekly Railery that's like streams on Railery podcast streaming on Twitch. So if we are currently returning to Spider-Man PS4. So we just started that. So if you want to see that, we're usually doing every Wednesday at around 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yep. So yeah. And again, just rate and reviews. Thanks.
Bye.